I'm a pacer, and so I can't pace, really. So this will be interesting. You'll maybe see me dance a little bit. A little bit about Cache County Attorney's Office. I don't see Scott Wyatt in here, do I? Did he leave? Okay, good, I can embarrass him. So about 30 years ago, Cache Valley was ranked as one of the worst places to live for victims of domestic violence, child abuse, and sexual assault, because there was just basically no prosecution. Investigations would take place, but nothing was being prosecuted. And a newly elected county attorney came in and changed that and started a victim services program. And it was going to be, I think I started at 15 hours a week or 10 hours a week. Today, we have 3 prosecutors that are devoted specifically to child abuse, sexual assault, domestic violence, stalking, protective order violations, homicide, and other things. We have 3 court advocates that are in court all day with the prosecutors. And then we have 2 investigators and 2 victim advocates that are in court part of the time and with me are out on the road with law enforcement in a lot of cases. We have a victim advocate assigned in Cache Valley 365 days a week, a year.
You keep going.
Every day. Christmas, holidays, whatever, we have victim advocates out. And we respond to anything that law enforcement needs us to respond to. We do the death notifications of sudden and unexpected deaths, such as suicides, SIDS, traffic fatalities. We respond to house fires and a slew of other types of cases that are criminal in nature. But it was probably about 20 years ago that I started tracking substance abuse with cases outside of substance abuse cases, such as domestic violence, burglaries, thefts, things like that. And then a few years later, I added pornography to that. And then a few years later, we started looking at when a media device, such as a TV or a screen, as I like to call them, because sometimes people want to argue with me. I wasn't gaming, I was on social media. So now we just call it screen time. But we started tracking that, and we noticed that there was an increase of criminal activity in the valley associated with screen time. So we're going to go through what I'm going to do with this for the next 45 minutes or however long I have. We're going to talk about some of the nationwide stats, what we're seeing here, and then give you some suggestions about what you can do. A few of the stats are, obviously, most people know that TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Snapchat are the popular ones for teens, and Facebook and Instagram are they're more popular for people like me. 53% of American children own a smartphone by the age of 11. And you can see that symptoms of depression are twice as likely to appear in teens who spend 5+ hours a day on their phones. And 33% of our youth across the nation have considered suicide in the past year. 97% of males game daily, and nearly half say they game too much. Few other things if we look at the infant through pre-K. Now, just so you're aware, the American Pediatric Association doesn't believe a child should be in front of a screen until at least 2 years of age. But by age 3, 30% of the kids in this country have a screen in their bedroom. These have significant effects on our infant through pre-K children. They have increased sleep issues, behavioral issues, mental health issues, language delays, cognitive development delays, and there's decreased parent-child interactions. So there's some really significant issues affecting our country with media devices, whether it be a TV or it be a phone or a gaming device, a tablet. Media addiction can be described or defined as a category. It's an impulse control disorder and can be defined as an individual's inability to control their internet use or dependence on social media, surfing the web, gaming, etc., which in turn leads to feelings of distress and functional impairment of daily activities. So my husband is a physics teacher, and he and I talk about this. He has noticed over the past 20 years as a teacher that today and in the last couple of years, he has an increased number of kids that simply don't, they show up to class, they may be falling asleep, they may not get their homework done, and he said the majority of kids in my classes, this is high school physics, are struggling to stay awake. And when he says, what were you doing? Well, I was gaming. And so we have kids that are really addicted to gaming. But what about parents? Let's talk a little bit about parents. These stats really made me sad. Many kids today feel that their parents are addicted to their phone or their computer. There's very little time spent with kids. Working parents arrive home from work. Children are immersed in technology. Parents are greeted only 30% of the time and ignored 50% of the time. That's a pretty alarming stat, that 50% of the time, families are not greeting each other at the end of the day. Additional findings are that 35% of our adults will pull out a phone if he or she receives a notification, even if they're in the middle of a conversation. I can tell you, remember how I said we respond on scene? I can tell you that we will be in the middle of a death notification, the most traumatic event somebody will ever face, and they got to pull out their phone and start texting people. And I'm like, wait a minute, we haven't notified the rest of the family. Oh, but I've got to let people know, or I've got to put it on social media. And for us, it's a race against time and social media to make our death notifications, which is really sad. I didn't used to have that problem 10 or 15, 20 years ago. 25% say their partner actively texts other people during face-to-face conversations. Have you ever been in a conversation and somebody starts checking their phone? It can be a little disturbing and alarming, and you don't feel like you're important to that person. Anthropologists studied families at restaurants and found only 27% of families ate with no electronic device at the table at a restaurant. Only 27%. That means that 73% of the families are eating with their phones out. And so when I was preparing for this, my husband and I were out at dinner one night, and we looked around, and sure enough, the majority of people at the restaurant were on their phones. Nobody's talking to each other. And I have a daughter that literally sent me a text as she was sitting next to me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? She's like, yeah, check your phone. No, I'm not going to check my phone. 10% of American adults suffer from a media or gaming addiction. And interestingly, parents, when they get stressed out by their children's behavior or interactions, they are turning to gaming or social media as an outlet. So if you get a call from the teacher that your kid's having problems in school, instead of confronting it, a lot of times people will go and spend their time in front of a screen. Okay, so we'll go through a little bit more of this. Americans spend 3 times as much time on social media as they do socializing and interacting with the real world. I won't ask how many of you in this room are like that or have family members like that, but I can tell you that the majority of us know somebody in our family, or we're like that, where we're struggling to live in the real world. This decreases mindfulness. It makes us more preoccupied, more distracted, and we can't focus and function as well. We are human creatures. We crave socialization, and yet we're becoming a society that is not socializing. A third of the world population is expected to be gaming or surfing the internet using social media in the next couple of years. And I threw this new one in because I'd seen it, and I've seen it in protective orders as well, and I was really surprised that social media and gaming is now accounting for about 1 out of 3 divorces because of jealousy, emotional affairs, and online dating. That's a pretty alarming stat. So it's not, when we think of social media and we think of gaming, we typically think of children and youth. What we don't think about are the adults and how it's affecting our families. And we'll go into that in a few minutes. So what are some things that happen in our valley and across the country with this type of interaction? Well, first, we have a lot of people that are spending a lot of time alone. They're spending more and more time alone instead of socializing. Some people have their closest friends they've never met. They're online, and they text or talk to them. We have a couple of things I wanted to talk about. One was bullying. So we see a lot of bullying, especially in our youth, and we have problems every year in this valley, especially at the onset of school, when it's getting ready to start because of summer bullying. We have roughly 50% of online gamers indicate they've been bullied. They have threats, there's trolling, there's personal information shared, a lot of things. They're just bullied through the gaming devices. Does anyone know the biggest popular game out there right now today with youth?
It's the one that they play games. What's it called?
World of Warcraft.
Oh,
Okay, do you know who owns World of Warcraft? Dane Murray and I went to a conference in Texas, and I think we both about fell out of our chairs when we found out who owned World of Warcraft. Anybody want to take a guess? Pornhub. Pornhub owns World of Warcraft. And at the bottom of the game of World of Warcraft, because they brought it up for us to see, there's a little thing. If you're over 18, you can click on the Pornhub app, and it will take you into the Pornhub. Now, if it doesn't verify if you're over 18, it doesn't ask for identification or anything like that. So imagine what that's doing to our youth, both male and female. Porn, they're able to access porn through these games, and World of Warcraft is the biggest one. So we talk about youth bullying. Anybody know of any adult that's been bullied? Okay, so I have dedicated 27 years to Cache County as a victim advocate. I have missed holidays. I have missed special events. My children have suffered because they literally, my husband and kids get the timer out at Thanksgiving, because I usually work Thanksgivings, and I'll be on call, and they'll see how long I can stay at my seat and eat before I'm called out. But my kids and my husband have sacrificed a lot for me to have this job. My job and my passion has been to help victims of crime through the most horrific, terrible things that they go through. We respond on scene, we get them through the criminal justice process, and we have really, really hard jobs. We do death notifications on these horrible cases. And back in May, the county recognized me for my 27 years of service. It was a wonderful surprise. I did not know I was going to be recognized. I walk into a county council meeting like I always do, and it's really crowded. And then I look over, and I'm standing, and I see my daughter, who's in medical school at the U. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "Oh, I'm just here because Damon got his mission call, and we're going to go open it." Damon is my younger daughter's boyfriend. And I look over, and Damon's there, and his dad, Jeff, is there. And I look and see my husband, and it's not clicking. And it was just this wonderful, wonderful surprise. And then this. Ask Terryl what she did to this baby. On Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube. Me getting my award, I told a victim, you got what you deserved. The one over there talks about how I'm involved in trafficking. And every couple of days, this kind of stuff. Most of it's pretty vulgar, or I would have included it. I'm a trafficker. People need to remove me out of my job because I'm a trafficker. This is what I deal with every day or two, to the point where I've shut my social media down. I didn't even know who these people were, and I had to go get booking sheets to figure out who they were. One of my victim advocates is going through the same thing, and we ended up having to get a stalking injunction on behalf of Cache County for her. and it still hasn't stopped. So once we got the stalking injunction, they turned the attention on me. And we've talked about getting a stalking injunction because every couple of days I'm called a trafficker. I'm helping rapists. I don't even know where this stuff came from. And it really was hard. Now my coworker has young children in the school system. And there were some things that were posted about her, that she's the PTA president at her children's school. But there were things posted that people had to question, like, what's going on, and are you okay? And this is what we deal with in my office every couple of days. The attention is turned off of her and onto me. And then I get people that will kindly send this to me and say, have you seen this? And I'm like, no, I have no social media right now. It's all shut down, so I don't have to see it. But this is turned, and remember, I get this wonderful award. I'm having this great time. And some of the pictures are from that night. And constantly, it's really sad. So bullying isn't just for kids. Do you know we can get a stalking injunction, and we have. And we continue to file charges, but it can't be in our office. It has to go to Weber County. And so there is nothing at this point that we can do because the case is going through the criminal justice system. These are people we didn't even know. We had no idea who they were. They weren't victims. It started because my coworker helped a victim of a protective order violation. And this, even though this has been going on for me since May and for her since December, there's nothing we can do. And we're in the system, and there's still not really anything we can do. And it's really sad. This is typical, though. I don't know how many of you have seen bullying online, but it's rampant. And it doesn't matter if it's on social media, such as Facebook or Instagram, or if it's on YouTube videos with this, or it's on Quora or Reddit. There's bullying constantly. To where the internet isn't, for us, the internet's really not a real fun thing anymore. What are some other things? We'll talk about sexting. Anybody want to know? Anybody want to describe it? I can tell you it's sending and receiving and forwarding sexually explicit photos, messages, and images via a cell phone, computer, or other digital devices. 1 in 7 teens report sending sex, 1 in 4 report receiving them, and 1 in 3 young adults report sending them, and 1 in 2 young adults report receiving them. That's a really scary stat. I'm amazed sometimes. My phone number, everybody and their mother has my cell phone number, and I'm amazed at the stuff I get. I can't put it out here, but I get sexting on a daily basis, and so do my advocates because our cell phone numbers are out there. The sad thing is it's a digital file. So I can tell you that in July or August of every month, every summer, we have victims that are teen victims that are terrified to go to school because, gosh, they've sent a picture to somebody and it got uploaded and shared to other people, and they don't want anybody to know, and they got to go to school. And we have that on a regular basis every July and August, where we have especially young women who don't want to go to school because of that. I had a case not too long ago where a 10-year-old had made some pornography for an older cousin, and I had to confiscate her phone. She was 10 years old making pornography in her bedroom. Her parents didn't even know. And then we had a battle over, I have to take the phone because it's evidence. I can't have child porn on there. And the detective had already left, and so we had to confiscate the phone. Mom didn't even have a clue that her 10-year-old daughter was making porn and that the older cousin was uploading it onto different social media sites. Youth who engage in sexting are more likely to experience depression and anxiety. That's a really scary stat as well, because so many kids are involved in it. There is a relational anxiety due to attachment issues, and that the reason people sext is because they really want to, they have attachment issues, whether it be to a parent or they want a boyfriend or girlfriend, and this is their way. And it's just increasing. In the Valley, I can tell you that we do charge people all the time. They're charged in juvenile court, they're charged in district court with sexting. If you have juveniles that are engaged in it, that can really hurt your child's future if they're engaged in it and we prosecute them. Criminal records in Utah for juveniles are sealed, but not completely. And so we do have a lot of young men. We had a young man not too long ago who'd been doing some sexting at 17 years old, and now he wants to go on an LDS mission, and the LDS church said, well, we're gonna hold off on that and have you have a psychosexual evaluation, and thousands of dollars down the road and time. I'm not sure if this young man will be able to go. But sexting is a really big problem. So let's talk about violent games and aggression. There are a lot of people that feel that violent games don't lead to violence because a lot of people play violent games. However, Hull and several other people did a research project of over 100, they did research on 100 research projects, and they found that there was a correlation between violent video games and aggression. And we started keeping track of this stat years and years ago, especially with our youth, because we found that violent video games did lead to some aggression. There seems to be a lack of empathy. There seems to be social isolation. They sit in their bedrooms and play video games all day. There's poor performance at work or school, increased anxiety. They have no impulse control. So I'd like to go to, I don't know how many of you know or remember Desiree Turner. Cute little gal. I absolutely adore the ground she walks on. She's now Desiree Buck, and she's married to Elder Buck. And I will never call him by Mason. He's always going to be Elder Buck. But Des, at 14 years old, was lured to a canal. And she was shot in the back of the head and left for dead. She was found about 8 hours later by two wonderful women. And she was rushed to the hospital. They didn't know what was wrong and found she had been shot point blank in the back of her head. The next day, when our county attorney at the time, James Swink, went with a search warrant with law enforcement to the shooter's house, I will never forget him sending me a picture. And this young man at 16 years old had a huge TV in his room with stacks and stacks of violent video games. And I know that a lot of people can play violent video games and not shoot somebody, but in that case, he had every single aspect here. He was emotionally callous. The only thing that saved Dez's life is when they left, they didn't go back and check on her, and that saved her. The World Health Organization has declared gaming addiction as a mental health disorder now. So let's talk about gaming. The average gamer in the United States is 35 years old. I bet, how many people knew that? I did not know that until I did this presentation. So let's talk about what we see in Cache Valley. Somebody goes to work, they come home, they want to game, they want to be on social media, they don't really want to deal with chores, they don't want to deal with responsibilities. Then the couple fights, and then there are problems. Children are yelled at, get out of the way, leave me alone, go away. And families draw further and further apart. And there's loneliness, isolation, depression, and confusion in the family. And that's what we see all the time when we respond on scene. A lot of families are very, very lonely. So I've pulled some quotes out of police reports and our notes, and I'd like to go over those with you. And because I'm old and decrepit, I have to wear glasses. The reality is I'm living in the same circle of shame and madness as someone married to an alcoholic. If we have to attend social events or have obligatory family time like birthdays and outings, and they run too long, my husband becomes irritable and anxious, desperate to return to the battlefield. I'm constantly making excuses for why he drove separately and is leaving early, or more commonly, why he didn't show up. My time at home includes all the household duties. I'm solely responsible for cooking, cleaning, bath time, bedtime, boo-boo kissing, cuddling, and correcting that comes from having children. All the while, cannons and gunfire are blasting from my basement. When children were younger, I was uncomfortable leaving them alone because I would return to find them unsupervised, while my husband, wearing gaming headphones, was enthralled with the mission. I have prayed, I have begged, I have bargained. We have been to ecclesiastical leaders and counselors. My circumstances remain unchanged. I was already distant from my family and was separating myself from reality. All I did was work, game, eat, and sleep. I honestly couldn't tell you anything about my kids' lives, what my kids' lives were like. I am left with regret of missing out on the most memorable times, and there is no way to get it back. My parents didn't sign my reading log or check my homework and forgot to tell me to go to bed when I was in elementary school. Now I'm in high school, and they haven't ever attended anything at school or don't know anything about the classes I'm taking. Oh, and yeah, I have nobody to help me when I have a project or I'm stuck on a problem. I counted how many words my dad said to me last week. 39 words in 7 days. Basically, brush your teeth and get to bed. My mom will often be up late playing her game. It's her pride and joy. My mom forgets to shower, and sometimes I have to yell her name before she realizes I'm talking to her. My husband told me not to expect him to wrap Christmas presents to me or the kids because he doesn't have time. He's too busy saving the planet from monsters and aliens. His gaming is ruining our marriage and family. Isn't that sad? So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this is how family and friends and work, health, mental health, appearances, and finances are affected. 62% of adults indicated out of 10,000 that they'd stayed up all night playing games. A quarter of people skipped work or school. 90% say they are addicted. And I have not been able to find an updated study, but in 2013, BYU study indicates that 75% of those married to gamers say they wish their spouse would spend more time on their marriage and less time on gaming, which is a really sad commentary on our society. So let's see, what can faith leaders or other people in the community do? So we can ask, is gaming or media distorting your view of reality? Are there thoughts that you're being consumed? I asked somebody in court one time after we had a court hearing and he had been arrested after a domestic violence incident because a child had tripped over a cord and knocked his game down, and he went and pushed his wife. And I asked him, and he told me that when he goes to work and when he's not at work, he's thinking about his game if he's not playing it. He's not thinking about his wife. He's not thinking about his kids. He's thinking about his gaming. Is it distancing people from their families? Are people zoning out? How many people, if you go to a school activity, how many people are paying attention to the school activity or if they're on their phones? And do you even look up? I have a really hard time when we're out on scene and somebody's playing a game and we're trying to respond and they don't even want to talk to us. They don't want to look at us because they're enthralled in a game. And if you stay up late or spend a lot of your time off playing games, that may mean, or on social media, you have an issue. I added this. I went to church, not to my own ward, a couple of weeks ago, and I looked around at how many people were on their phones in the middle of a church service, and I was like, that's really troubling to me, because if you're there to go to church, then put your phone away. And I was really surprised, and I went back and I was telling my husband, I said, you guys need to start asking. If you're sitting on the stand and you can see somebody's phone and they've got their phone out the whole time, you should ask them, what are you doing on your phone? We're in the middle of church. And see what they say. We'll see if my husband does that. He's not as brave as I am. So one of the other things that I wanted to point out that we see in this valley is the amount of money spent on gaming. So the quote says, League of Legends is great, it's good, it's fun, it's free. Oh yeah, how much have you spent? I've spent $8,000. I talked to a woman who, in the course of 6 months, her husband had spent $4,800 on some game, and she was devastated, and they had no money, they're struggling, and he'd spent $4,800 in 6 months, which that is a ton of money that they're spending on a game that could have been free, and clearly he was spending a lot of time on that game. But this is something that we see a lot with our communities around here. We started keeping track of gaming and pornography associated with like burglaries and thefts back, I want to say like 2006, 2007, because we found that because pornography was costing money and gaming was costing money, we had a lot of break-ins. We had things stolen. We had people break in and use other people's internet to access stuff. And we started keeping track, and now people have Wi-Fi, and it's just a lot more difficult to keep track of that. But we see this is not an isolated case where somebody spends $4,800 in 6 months on a game, and probably tens of thousands of dollars down the drain over the course of their 15 or 18-year marriage. That is really a sad amount. So let's talk about some suggestions for change if this is in your family or you know somebody. One of the best pieces of advice, when I started at the county attorney's office, our county attorney at the time had children that were older than mine. Mine were little. And he told me one day, he comes to work and he's like, his son was maybe 10 or 12 years old and had been playing a video game, and he wouldn't put it down to go to bed. And so my old county attorney cut the cord, unplugged it and cut the cord. And then he said, you shouldn't ever have gaming devices. So I want you to know I've never had a gaming device in my home. I don't even know how to turn the TV on in my home. And we've apparently had cable for quite some time, but nobody knew, because it was part of our Xfinity package. But I have extended family that really, really struggle with this. And so I wanted to take a few minutes and go over some of the changes. Taking time to connect with our family every day, 30 minutes. That's all, 30 minutes. You got 24 hours. 30 minutes before you pick up a device to look at the social media, Quora, Reddit, do online shopping, gaming, whatever it is that takes some time. And it's an avenue for you. Spend at least 30 minutes taking any time with your family and letting them know that they're your number one priority. That may mean we put our phones away. We don't have them out so that they're not a distraction. I don't know how to work my phone very well. My kids have it programmed, but I don't get notifications for anything because I asked for that. I don't want notifications for anything. So I get no notifications, and periodically I have to check my phone because I don't get a notification. I have every notification off, and I think that's been really helpful. Discuss how much time people should be on their phones or on their media, and then stick to specific time limits. Kids really shouldn't probably spend 5, 8, 10 hours a day on a device, but neither should any of us, because it puts us in an alternate sense of reality. And so family members should be able to come together and say, listen, we're having this issue. We don't want it at the kitchen table or something like that. And that's the other one. Have a tech-free zone, such as the kitchen table, where everybody can put their phones. I know my husband now in his classroom has a shoe organizer, and everybody walking in has to put their phone. This is high school. They cannot have their phones with them because they will pull them out and use them, or they'll sneak them. So he has this rule that everybody has to put their phones in the shoe organizer. But I think it's a really good idea if we have certain areas of our homes that don't have technology there. Monitoring sites. So one of the things that there was a suggestion that I saw at a conference that was, to like law enforcement social media sites. So those kind of come up and they have great tips on monitoring sites and activities. So if you like or follow their sites, you'll be able to get some new tips when they put them out. No screens in the bedroom, and eliminate how many devices are in the home. I'm amazed at how many people have so many TVs. I think the average family has now 4 TVs. And I think no screens in a bedroom is really, really good. I was talking to my son before this presentation, and he said that was probably one of the biggest helps of him to not have a TV in his room. He never had a TV. And he has access to a TV in a family room, and that's about it. Know the value of face-to-face communication. We're losing that. We're losing the ability to communicate with each other. And we want to make sure people remember communication in person is invaluable. Unfollow, not unfriend, unfollow everyone but those that are closest to you. If you're on Facebook, you have the ability to not follow them. And it's not like you're not friends, but you just don't get a lot of their information. If you feel like there's somebody in your family or somebody you know that is struggling, an assessment may be really critical. It may be helpful. CBT therapy, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, is most beneficial. Do y'all know what cognitive behavioral therapy is? It's talk therapy, because we need to get people used to talking again. And considering a detox for 10 days, 20 days, 30 days with no screen time. If there's bullying, report it to law enforcement. Also, if you've got kids in school, report it to the school as well. And a lot of parents may want to not do that because they don't want to get their kids in trouble. I had a woman reach out to me. Her son had sent some inappropriate pictures. He was 15, and then he started getting bullied. And she was afraid to report it because her son's going to get in trouble. And I'm like, oh, really? It's okay. He can get in trouble because he's 15 years old, and our juvenile record's he's not going to be charged as an adult. He's 15 years old. And let's get him the help he needs. But it was a hard conversation. So if you have family members that are juveniles and they're doing things that are really inappropriate, that's the time to take care of issues. I don't know if anybody has any questions. That's about the end of my presentation. I think I have a few minutes if anybody has any questions. If not, then we're going to be done. Or yes?
Have you seen social media?
In Cache Valley, I have yet to be to a home where somebody over 12 doesn't have access to social media of some sort. It's really rare that I haven't seen anybody. I've seen kids as young as 10 and 9 or 10 that don't have social media, but I have seen kids that are 9, 10, 11 years old that also have access to, they have their own tablets. We have a lot of kids. Well, you're here, you could speak to it. They're up to 2, no social media, and no devices. And after that, it's like limited of 30 minutes. It's really small, the amount that young kids should have access to. And they may not have social media, but they have tablets and TV devices as well. I think I was reading on the news a couple of weeks ago about some young 18-month-old that bought like $6,000 worth of stuff for his or her mom, and mom's like, wait a minute, she just was able to click all the buttons, and I'm thinking that child was under 2, shouldn't even have access to it. So, but I can't remember ever going on seeing where kids that were at least by middle school not having a tablet, phone, social media, and other sites. So, any other, yes? I don't think, DCFS could look at that, but I know what you're saying, like, is it neglectful? I remember when we first moved to Utah, when we moved to Cache Valley, we lived in these townhouses behind Sam's Club. And I was working at the county attorney's office, and the neighbor, her kids would come over and ask for lunch or food, And their mom was just starting. She was just starting to do this online dating and online stuff, and she wasn't even remembering to feed her kids. And there wasn't a lot that they could do. So, no. Any other questions? Well, oh, yes.
I have one more. Any suggestion on that? I'm just
I think if you have something for your kids, I think you just have monitoring abilities as well. So probably not earlier than middle school, probably high school. Did you have a question? No, I think the social media and internet and all this could be used really well. I'm not a fan of gaming. I think it's a waste of time, but that's only my personal opinion. But I think that there's a lot that you can do. I mean, I can do my grocery shopping. I can talk to my dad back in South Carolina. So I think there's a lot of good that goes with the internet. I think we just have to use it and be appropriate with it. Heidi?
Well, something I've taken years.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Any others? And if not, I think we'll be done. Oh, wait.
I just want to close this out.